Gerald Westlund from Mason, Wisconsin. I was drafted, but I was deferred for 2 years after I graduated from high school because I was born and raised on a farm. And my older brother, as soon as I graduated from high school, he was drafted. And then, so I was deferred then for 2 years. And my next younger brother graduated 2 years later, then I was drafted, so they grabbed me real quick. That was 1944, in August. Oh, I received notice from the town, the city near there that was headquarters for the county, and said you are to report such and such a date, and to report there, and they put us on a bus, took us down to Milwaukee for some interrogation or whatever it was, I don't remember. Got back, and then they, for a couple weeks, and they sent me a train ticket, and I was off to Camp Wheeler, Georgia. The basic training there then, and supplied with uniforms and all that. The physical and everything in preparation for that was done there. And I was there then till taking regular basic, and they had us choose some areas that we would like to be in, and I said, well, I'll take truck driving. So they put me in that, and we had a truck driver's basic. Driving all their vehicles other than tanks, but half-tracks, the big six-wheel drive units, and Jeeps, and everything under the smaller range like that. And driving at night, driving through mud holes, and a little bit of everything. Well, it was easier than it was for some that weren't used to, you know, a lot of hard work in that. So it was still difficult. When you put you on a forced march for about 5-10 miles, you felt it. Even though this was in Georgia, it got cold at night during October and November and December. In fact, a lot of fellows had their feet frozen, so they had to get them treated for that. We didn't complete our training, however. It was about 10 weeks. They cut it short there on account of the Battle of the Bulge, because they'd lost so many people there that we were destined to be their replacements. So, and about 2 days before Christmas, 3-4 days maybe, we were out on bivouac for a week, and they come and got us with a truck, hauled us back to our barracks, and pack your duffel bags with no more than 50 pounds. You're flying out. And we thought right away, man, we're going to go right overseas. But then they told us, you're going to get 3 days at home. So they flew us up to Chicago, and then I took the train from Chicago up here, which took another 24 hours. So I got home on Christmas Day night, and I don't recall how I got from Ashland, which was 25 miles from my home, but I must have found somebody that I could get a ride with. So I got home then unexpectedly to our parents and family. Knew that 3 days I think it was on a Wednesday, I think Friday morning I had to leave. So we left by train then for the port of embarkation out in the East Coast. So there were about 10,000 soldiers on that ship, the U.S. Wakefield. We were stacked at least 4 high in the bunks. It wasn't as bad as some I heard of, where they would switch. Half the crew would sleep at night and half the crew would sleep at daytime. We didn't have to do that. But in January, the seas were awfully rough, and there were so many sick people on that boat that I know they would come looking for people to act as guards for certain stairways and things like that. And they come looking for me a couple times, but I was so sick. So I slid over to the bunks were side by side, and slid over to the other one. When you come down this row, And when he went out the back end, I slid over back to the first one. So they missed me. But the trip over was really rough. I didn't eat much there. I would feel hungry. We'd march over to, or walk over to where you go down the stairs to the mess hall. You get the smell of that food, and you'd turn around and go back, because I'd have never made it down there otherwise. I would have lost it. We landed in England, near Southampton, but I'm not sure of the name of the place. And they got us over to Southampton where we got on an LST, which is a transport for tanks and things like that. And the floor there is steel, and that's where we all took our blankets and made bed there. And we had 2 blankets, one for the top of you and one to fold up double or so underneath, because, well, we were on that boat 5 days. And we were at 11 days crossing the Atlantic. But and the reason for that, it was so stormy that we couldn't take off and land. So they just kept us in the bay, sort of there, rough it was. And seeing that it was a LST, it wasn't waterproof from above, and it was raining. And some of the rain come down through, and there was, in certain places, a half-inch of water floating around down there. That with being sick, or seasick, it didn't help much. And I made it through till about the 3rd day. And then I found a coffee can, a 3-pound coffee can, laid it right beside my blanket, and I lost it. And that wasn't real bad then, but then as the boat was shifting back and forth, somebody walked by and lost his balance and gave that can a kick. So that was something else. Then we crossed. It took us another day about to cross. We got to the other side and it was too rough to land. So it was another 2 days. So we were on that ship 5 days. But I was so glad to get off that ship, the Harv. There was snow on the ground, so I think everything looked pretty good. Anyway, then we marched with our duffel bags and all our belongings for, I don't know, maybe a couple miles to get to a place where we could stay that night and get sort of organized. Then they got us on trains. These were the 40 and 8 type thing. You've heard of those. About half the size of our boxcars here. When we would sleep, we had to pretty much sleep on our sides because there wasn't enough room if you laid down on your back. And there was one person slept his head one way and the other way, every other one. So, and then our duffel bags were stacked in one end, just about up to the ceiling. I got a story to tell on that. When in crossing like that, they made certain people, I don't know if I should use this word, brown nosers, and they were made acting sergeants. Well, this one fellow, he was a jerk, really. He liked to show his power, and he wasn't any further along than we were. And everything wasn't too sanitary on on a trip like that. And he got the GIs. And the train didn't stop for anything other than when they had to stop for a town or some other problem. And he didn't make it. He just filled his britches. And all of us chuckled, sort of, not outright to his face, but so the first time the train stopped, then he took off all his clothes, rolled them up and threw them out the door. There was no way to clean them. But I think that took them down a few notches. They would hand in rations, K rations or C rations, I don't remember which. Probably Ks. We were heading for a repo depot, if you want to call it that. But the other thing was quite interesting. Every time the train did stop, and there was snow about 1.5 feet deep or 2 feet or so. Everybody would jump out, and you'd see all up and down the train, guys with their breeches down, taking care of their duties. They apparently had our records there, so they looked at what they were, and well, here's one for this area and that and whatever. And they called me, and I was to go to the 10th Armored Division. Well, we stayed there about 3-4 days then when they assigned us to a certain place, rode by truck to that unit. And to get oriented and to sign what you're going to do and all that. And while there, and the 10th Armored was just there too, on the 20th. But so they didn't have any slit trenches made. So I was new, and one of the lieutenants says, go out and dig a slit trench. So I went out maybe 100 feet back of the building there, and dug one. One lieutenant came through fresh out of someplace, I don't know where. But he said, it can't be that close, you got to dig it way back. So covered it up, proceeded to dig it further back. Regular army, you know. And so I did. Wouldn't you know, the next day he had problems, he got diarrhea. And he couldn't make it out the way out there. So he had me dig it back about where I had it before. The Battle of the Bulge by that time had turned. Not that everybody was completely out of there yet, but it had turned, so. I didn't have to go up there. The 10th Armored had been up there, right in the middle of it, and lost, as I said, about half their men. And through death and freezing, trench foot, a lot of different things. Because there was a lot of damage, vehicles and that, and needed replacement parts. Well, we knew that they'd been up in there, and we knew that Bastogne had been bad. The first thing that I remember, they signed me, of course, but you didn't do too much until the day we jumped off. And one of the first places we jumped off into was crossing the Siegfried line. I don't know how many 100 vehicles there were with us. Trucks, tanks, assault guns, cannons. There was a place cut through already, blown up so that we could get through. But then after that, we started to see dead soldiers, both American and German. A lot of dead horses, because at that point, Germany was using a lot of horses for vehicle movement. And actually, that's one of the things that hit me hardest, because home on the farm, I loved horses, and then to see them laying there, it was. And then very shortly after that, we got into where they were shelling us with regular cannon fire and tanks and whatever, mortars. The first thing I thought was, if I lived through this a couple of days, I'll be real fortunate. Now you could hear that whistle and you knew it was coming. And the other one was the Screaming Mimis. Those were where they had probably 15 units coming out of one particular gun. Those were really whistling, so you could hear them screaming for quite a way. But I made it through the whole thing without a scratch. And some of it, when it got real fierce, all the GIs and trucks and that would jump out and get down in the ditch or something. I couldn't, I just had to sit right in the Jeep. My company commander, Captain Geiger, who was hit sometime later when he was one guard sitting in the back, because he had to go with the guard, captain, whenever he left the Jeep to do whatever he had to do. Oh, he was a great guy, sort of crazy, because later on when we'd be going through some towns, advancing, he would tell me, take a left here off a street, not follow the column as you're going. And then he'd go 3-4 blocks around, come back again. Nobody had ever been in that town before, as far as military. I didn't think much of that, but you're the boss. And then he'd be singing Alles kaputt in Deutschland. If that wouldn't have angered somebody to shoot, I don't know what would. And then he was always singing on the Isle of Capri. To the top of his voice, he'd be standing up singing that. He was a good guy. We called him Flat Top because when he took off his helmet, his head on the top was perfectly flat. People, and again, we didn't see too much. As we were going through, they made themselves invisible. Wherever they went, I don't know. You'd see some here and there, but not. Although I guess they knew that the Americans were coming, and that they would rather see them come than the Russians or any of the French. We would look around for a fairly decent place and go in and tell the people, "You've got to get out. You've got 5 minutes to do it in." And of course, there's a lot of screaming, women hollering, "Oh, this," and they talk about their mother is sick and all that. Well, you take them to your neighbor then, and it was probably not real right, but in a situation like that, I'd get together with the maintenance people and that, and he would go with the officers. Took our 2 blankets and made it home for the night. For the most part, when we were traveling, it would be K rations they'd have given us, because the mess truck would be not too far behind. So when we stopped for an evening meal like that, and there was not a lot of fighting going on, they would come up and serve you a hot meal.